Hey everyone, I am so excited for this video. It's been a long time coming, but a little while ago I asked if any of you would be willing to share some minimalism stories, and a number of you responded and emailed me through the email that I provided. I will also provide that information again below, and I'm just so grateful to the people who did respond. I wasn't sure if anyone would respond, and now I have so many stories that I feel like I really got to get started in reading some of these. Before we get into that, I want to take a quick moment to talk about something, a bigger kind of issue on my channel, which is just that I have been doing sponsorships. This video is not sponsored by anyone, but in general, it's been something that's been happening on my channel for a little while now. And I'm looking toward the future and thinking about what kind of an environment I want this channel to be. There are moments where I feel like, is it wrong for me to be sharing these products with you when so much of my channel revolves around reducing shopping and living with less? Like, are those two things contradicting each other? And I've just been doing a lot of processing around that, and I realized I should just address it head on. And the first thing I want to say is that when I do sponsorships, I definitely don't want anyone to feel like they need to buy anything. I hope that all the other content on my channel around intentional living and purchasing very thoughtfully, I hope that those ideas you can apply to sponsorships. And the good news is that I am very thoughtful about who I partner with, and I only want to be sharing or promoting products that I genuinely like. I do get a lot of requests for sponsorships at this point, which I feel very grateful for, but I'm very picky about who I work with. And so I do want to mention that I'm trying to make those sponsorships come from an authentic place. And the other thing I want to mention is that sponsorships are a real way for me to keep this channel going. It is a real form of income for me. I don't want to sound complainy here because ultimately I am just purely grateful for this channel. And at the same time, I have to acknowledge that it is a lot of work to keep creating these videos, and there's a lot of planning and production that go into each and every one of these videos. Simply shooting a video takes me a while, but then the editing is almost the longest part, and then thinking about the principles and coming up with ideas and creating a plan for videos, it's just a lot of work. And then in addition to that, I have to pay for all my equipment, cameras, lenses, audio gear, lighting, all of that, in addition to subscriptions to software so I can edit, in addition to subscriptions to places where I get music or other effects or things like that. I'm constantly trying to improve the quality of my videos, and that's expensive. And having these sponsorships are one way for me to be able to set aside that time in my day to work and to also pay for all these expenses. So I've been kind of grappling with that issue, but I just thought I'd address it head on, that ultimately I decided, if I'm going to keep making videos and if I'm going to keep trying to make them better, I'm going to end up doing some sponsorships, but I will be very picky and very thoughtful about what companies I'm working with and the products that I'm promoting. So thanks for hearing me out on that. If you have any thoughts or reactions to that, please let me know. I definitely want this channel to feel like a good space, an authentic, real space. And if any of you have thoughts surrounding this issue of doing sponsorships, feel free to let me know. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on to your stories. I'm so excited to read them. I haven't read them yet, so we're just going to see what happens. This first one is an email from Margaret. Hi, Elin. I appreciate your encouraging videos as they help me so much. I appreciate your honesty. One thing I've really grasped from you is that there may be a deeper issue as to why we hold on to things. A tiny story. Last Friday, as I went to the linen closet in our hallway to look for the extra shower curtain that I had stored there, I realized just how full the closet had become over time. When my husband saw the stack of pillowcases that I had, he wanted to know why we had so many. I informed him that some were worn out and that we didn't even use them, but that I couldn't get rid of them. He said, well, if you can't, I can. I told him we couldn't because they were sentimental. For example, I explained the reasons why, as one set had been a wedding gift that his neighbor had hand embroidered for us. Another set our daughter had hand embroidered when she was a teen. Now these pillowcases had been well used to the point that part of the embroidery was missing on all of them. One had the hem hanging and stains on it. Some were threadbare. Why am I keeping these? A wedding gift that someone had spent hours making. our daughter embroidering something special for us. It is so hard to let things go when I realize the time and meaning that has been invested in making them. Finally, I realized that the wedding gift ones had served their purpose as we had used them for years. Then I called my daughter, who is now 35, married and has children of her own, and not the teen anymore. I told her about the worn out pillowcases and sent photos. She said, "Mom, throw them away. Why do I hold on to things?" Sentimental? Yes, but much more. Perhaps the memories, perhaps not wanting to hurt feelings. Good point there. Perhaps knowing all the work that had been done to make them for us. The even deeper meaning is this: that things are just things. Material things that in the long run won't last anyway. I need to remember the people who cared enough to give them instead, and not the items. It is really about relationships and love given. I'm on a daily journey, and at times it is a rough road of letting go. Margaret. Thank you so much, first of all, Margaret, for this story. I think it is a prime example. It's one that I bet a lot of us can relate to. I know I can. And the first thing I want to just acknowledge is I think that's an interesting moment where you were like, I can't let them go. And then your husband was like, well, I can. And yet you still had trouble letting him let them go. And first of all, it kind of sheds light on the fact that different people have different levels of guilt around sentimental items. And almost that's like a nice, fresh reminder that sometimes just because we feel guilt to keep something or that we shouldn't get rid of something, especially for these sentimental reasons, other people who are in the exact same position might not feel guilt. And so maybe that has something to do with values or the particular relationships or the particular memories. But your husband is actually in a similar boat as you in this scenario, and yet he's fine with letting them go. And so I just think that's interesting, and it can almost be used as a reminder to say, hey, like, just because I'm feeling guilt doesn't mean a person in the same position as me would feel that same way. And it might have to do with temperament or socialization or a variety of psychological factors, but the point is, maybe sometimes we don't have to feel so much guilt. The other point I want to make with that is that sometimes it's actually helpful to talk to people around us, to our partners or people in our families or close friends, when we're kind of getting stuck in the decluttering process, because sometimes they can shed light or a different perspective on things and make us approach the whole situation a little bit differently. So that was like a nice conversation actually between you and your husband in a way. I think the other issue that comes up here for me is mind reading. And I feel like I do this all the time with sentimental pieces. I assume other people in my family who maybe are connected to the object might retaliate or get frustrated with me if I get rid of items. But sometimes that's just mind reading, and we don't know what they're actually thinking either until we ask or just take the risk. It is a reminder that maybe, again, we're harboring guilt or a level of sentimentality that's causing us to keep something that even the person who gave it to us wouldn't mind us parting with. Anyway, thank you, Margaret, for sharing your story. I think this was just such a great example to start out with. Let's move on to the next story. The next one comes from Barbara. Hi, Elin. I doubt you'd want to share my story as I'm in a completely different stage of life from you and probably most of your viewers. I'm in my 70s. Margaret, I'm happy to share your story. I'm glad you shared, and I want perspectives that might be a little bit different than my own. You might have a lot of knowledge that I do not have, so thank you for sharing, and I'm excited to share the story. So, here we go. I've been dealing with the remnants of the lives of my parents' and grandparents' generations. My mother was the eldest of 4 sisters. She died earlier this year at the age of 99. Oh wow, I am so sorry for your loss. Sounds like she must have had a very long, full life, but I'm really sorry for your loss, losing a parent. I know that's one of the hardest things people go through, so I really feel for you. She was the last of her generation. Siblings, in-laws, cousins, friends, she was the last. And she had saved the objects that had belonged to many of the people who'd gone before her. Since she and I had lived together for 17 years, I was the person assigned to care for these material things. A few years ago, I started the process of freeing myself from some of these items. Many were in boxes stored in the rafters of our garage, boxes of treasures that had been collected by my ancestors, rock and shell collections, beautiful baskets and ceramics, paintings, etc. These weren't in our way, really. We still could park 2 cars in our garage. The house was fully adorned with similar items, but not excessively cluttered. No one would enter and think hoarder, just a house with walls and shelves used for displaying object art. My mother had used a broker to sell Indian rugs and pottery that my grandmother had collected. The residual wasn't exceedingly valuable, but still beautiful. I started by joining a Buy Nothing group. My goal was to give away a box full of things every week. It was challenging for me to choose recipients. My neighborhood Buy Nothing group enjoyed requesting these items, and people would send me photos of how they displayed the items in their homes. I have to admit, I glowed receiving so much sweet gratitude. I made groupings of different items, like a number of shells or mineral specimens. Over 100 people made visits to my front porch to pick up items they had requested. My mother knew what I was doing, but didn't put any barriers in my way. I did not change her surroundings. Our house is still decorated, but the excess is gone. My son praised me for doing this. I've read The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning and recommend it. I love your videos. I love the calm and humility you project. Thank you for your work, Barbara. Wow, Barbara, thank you so much for those kind words. And also, thank you for this story. I think it's a lovely example of how sometimes if we just put in that effort to gather up our belongings that we don't really need, especially that excess, and we share it with people, it might bring others joy. And I love the example of a Buy Nothing group, which allows you to give things away that you don't want or need, but that someone else might want or need. I think that's a lovely way of doing it. And it sounds like this whole process was a challenge and probably emotionally difficult in some ways and just logistically difficult. You must have spent a lot of time on this, but it sounds like there was a payoff and that it made your family happy too. And so that is just incredible. Good for you. I'm so glad you shared this story. You also attached a photo of the remainder of the shells that you kept. And you say, I wanted to resist the all or nothing approach to decluttering. And I love that. I do think that sometimes we can put things on display and we can keep collections if they're meaningful to us. But it's just about figuring out how much is needed or how much is meaningful to you and making sure that you're enjoying it in the way that works for you in the context of your life. So I'm so glad that you were able to do that, Barbara. So I think I'm just going to stick with 2 stories for now, and I'm really interested to see what all of you think. Definitely let me know how you feel about this type of video. I personally really loved hearing your stories. They really made me think, and it is just nice to connect a little bit more because I feel like as I create more videos and I receive more comments and ideas, I just feel more and more connected and like we almost are friends, and I genuinely learn from all of you. And so I just appreciate all the support and ideas and moments where you share your perspectives. I'm just really grateful to have this channel and this little community, and I'm so glad that you're here. And if you want to send in your story, feel free to follow the instructions in the description box below. Send it to my email. I would love to receive them. Again, I want to emphasize what I'm really looking for are people's examples or actual experiences. So your stories with a beginning, middle, and end, describing something you've been through. It can be a very specific example or an overall journey that involves your philosophy around minimalism, maybe a life struggle you had, or maybe a funny, quirky story about minimalism. But I am here for all of it, and that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.